let's jump into FHA and the different products. You know, generally speaking, we use 3 different products out there: FHA, VA, conventional. Let's start with FHA since you mentioned that. How much do I need to put down on an FHA loan?
Minimum down payment is 3.5%.
Okay, so $200,000 house, which is hard to come by, but that's $7,000 down payment. Closing costs, you can either roll that in potentially, or you would need that additional money.
Correct,
right?
correct.
Okay, so what's a minimum score in general on FHA?
FHA minimum score 580. Okay. When you get below that, you're looking at putting more down. Okay. There are some additional guidelines with going below a 580.
Okay, so FHA, aside from just the smaller down payment, the ratios, they allow you to have a higher debt to income ratio?
Yes. Okay. You can go up to just under 57% on an FHA loan, where on a conventional loan, you're looking at 45 to 50%.
So what all comes into play on debt to income, by the way? So we say DTI, debt to income. What all is in a debt to income ratio?
So you are looking at the full mortgage payment, so your principal and interest, taxes, insurance, and mortgage insurance. Along with all the other minimum payments on the debts that you have. So your car payment, your credit card payments, student loans, all of those things are part of your debt. And that's pulled against your income, your gross income. Okay, well, let's talk about income. What are the different things that can be considered income? Can if I'm a divorced person, I'm getting child support, does child support count as income? Child support does count as income, and in the mortgage business, there's always a short and a long answer. The short answer is yes. The longer answer is you usually have to show a minimum of 6 months of receipt. So if you're just newly divorced and getting child support, you might not be ready to be able to count that income. Okay. So if I'm self-employed, so we've got W-2, we've got 1099. If I'm just self-employed, what do I need to produce? So with self-employed, if you're newly self-employed, you're going to need a minimum of 2 years of tax returns. So you'll need that history. And for self-employed, we have to go off the adjusted gross income, which is different than your gross receipts. Right. So if I'm somebody who gets a lot of cash, if I'm a bartender, a massage therapist, or someone like that who gets a lot of cash, I know a lot of times, oftentimes people want to keep their taxes low. Absolutely. But that can come back to haunt you a little bit if you're making $150,000, but your adjusted gross income is $25,000. Right. And I always say that's great until you're going to qualify for a mortgage. Now, there are more and more what we call non-QM loan products coming out, and QM being what? Qualified mortgage. Okay. And so they're non-traditional loan products that don't necessarily go by Fannie Freddie, but they're great for self-employed, so sometimes you can use 12 months of bank statements versus your tax returns. And so there are some other options that don't fit the conventional loan products that we're talking about. So so we touched on FHA. What if I'm a veteran? What do I need to do? What are the first steps aside from reaching out to you? What are some of the things I'm going to need to collect that are different than what an FHA borrower or a conventional borrower are going to need? So the VA loan product is really the best loan product out there. It is a 0 down payment product. As a veteran, you're going to need your DD-214, or if you're active duty, you don't have that, and we'll gather the information that we need from you. And then normally what we'll do is pull your certificate of eligibility, but you can pull that from the VA website as well. But the VA loan product, like I said, is 0 down payment. If you're a disabled veteran, there's a lot of times where you don't have to pay property taxes. The guidelines on a VA loan are more what we call common sense guidelines. There's not a hard debt to income ratio. So it's a really great loan product for our veterans. So and veterans can also get money back at closing potentially if, let's say they've written their earnest money check. It was a $400,000 house. They wrote a check for $4,000 up front, and we've also rolled in enough closing costs. So veterans can actually get money back at closing. Yes, that is correct. I closed one with one of your agents yesterday, and they got $3,000 back. Right. So that's a great product. It's great for our veterans. My father's a veteran, so I'm familiar with the DD-214. But okay, all right. So that's a VA product. What about conventional? I know there's more than one product in the conventional world. Do
Do you have to put 20% down when you buy with a conventional loan?
You do not have to put 20% down with a conventional loan. And actually, there's a couple conventional loan products, Home Ready, Home Possible, and Home One, that all only require 3% down. So it's become a competitive loan product actually with FHA because you're putting that smaller down payment. There's some of those, the rates can be even lower on those 3% down, and there's some income guideline limits. So there's some different nuances, but you can put as little as 3% down on a conventional loan.
Okay, so the advantage is less down, but when you do put less than 20% down, you do typically have mortgage insurance, correct?
That is correct.
And I know there are some conventional products that don't have mortgage insurance, but
not normal.
But your rate would probably be higher though?
Yeah.
Right, so 20% down, you avoid mortgage insurance. Now, without diving too deep into this, mortgage insurance is generally calculated, without getting into the weeds, based on what?
On a conventional loan, it's going to be calculated on how much you're putting down and what your credit score is.
Okay, so keep that in mind, folks, that if you got great credit and you only want to put 5% down, 10% down, that's great. But ultimately, you're going to want to work your way down to a place where you have, 20, what is it? They want you to be 78, 79% before you...
It'll automatically cancel at 78%. Once you have 20% equity, you can call and cancel it. And I will say, a lot of people are fearful of mortgage insurance and they just are so stressed about putting that 20% down. But honestly, if you're putting 10 to 15% down, that mortgage insurance is a lot of times maybe $20 to $50 a month. It's not $150, $200 a month. And so it's always good to run those numbers. So sometimes instead of putting an extra 10% down to avoid it, it's better to keep your cash flow and pay that extra $50 a month in mortgage insurance.
I do have a buddy of mine I went to high school with. He reached out to me recently. Well, he reached out prior to that. I sold him their house, and anyways, between their value going up and them paying down the loan, they were able to get the lender to come out. I think they did an appraisal, and they were able to eliminate their mortgage insurance, and I think it was $100 and something. So there's definitely savings there. All right, so we got the FHA product, the VA product. We're talking about conventional. So there's some 3% down products, et cetera, et cetera. I guess on the conventional product, who do you see normally? Obviously, veterans go the VA route, but who do you normally see go the FHA route? Is it just people who are new into the market? I know I bought my first house in 1997. I was a little more cash strapped. I did do an FHA loan. I later refied, but I did do an FHA loan. At the time, instead of it being 3.5% down, it was like 2.25% or something like that. And I remember I only went to closing with like $3,000 or $4,000. Of course, the houses were a lot cheaper back then. Anything else you want to add on the different products? Whether it's the conventional side, whether it's 3%, 5%, 10%, whatever. Are there any other special programs out there? We don't want to dive too deep into this, but there are down payment assistance programs for people who can get a grant for their down payment,
right? Absolutely. And so on the FHA loan, I do want to say some people think that you have to be a first-time home buyer to use an FHA loan, and you don't. So when I'm doing that pre-approval, I'm looking at your profile and I'm seeing what is your credit score, how much cash do you have, and so that's going to determine what loan product we're going to put you in. Same thing with the down payment assistance programs. Most of them now do not require you to be a first-time home buyer. You usually cannot own another home, but there are down payment assistance programs. Some of them are grants, which you don't have to pay back. A lot of them are what we call a soft second lien. So there'll be a second lien on the home for the down payment assistance, and it's usually forgivable. So if you stay in the house 3 to 5 years, you don't have to pay that back. And so they are great programs to assist you with. It's not going to cover everything that you need to get into a house, but it'll usually cover your down payment and a little bit of closing costs.
Okay.